Welcome back to the Black Carnivore podcast. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to bring you another great conversation. So today we have Lawerence, who had a really challenging experience over the last couple of years between, a really devastating knee injury and then COVID. And then, all of this sort of moved him towards adopting a carnivore diet and having a lot of health benefits. So we're going to just dive right in and hear the story. And Lawerence, take it away. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, well, it all kind of started in 2019. Actually, it started from like one of those challenges where they say, hey, if you drop all of your, don't eat sugar for 30 days, don't eat grains for 30 days and see what happens. So I did that for 30 days and actually I felt really great. And then
do you think that was a keto diet, or was it just kind of like Whole30, or what was that?
It was probably just, it's like one of those Facebook things, like there was no diet attached to it. Just eliminate these things, starches and grains, and see what happens. So just do it for 30-day challenge, right? No lifestyle change, nothing like that. Just try it for 30 days. So I had really good results on that. I went away out of town, and then I came back, and then right before Thanksgiving, I started up again. And then so my knees at the time had a lot of inflammation in my knees, and I was a little sore, and inflammation went away. So much so that I thought it was a good idea to go play basketball with this young man and prevent him from dunking a basketball. And I blew out both my knees.
Oh, no, that's horrible. Yeah. And were you overweight at the time, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was probably about 380.
Wow.
6 feet tall.
So, okay. But okay, so that's a lot. So you were out on the basketball court with young guys, and
right.
Good for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've always, even though I've been a large man, I've always been athletic. I played tackle in high school. I always, martial arts. I always kept a physicality towards myself, riding bikes, so on and so forth. So it was really all about me getting back to a sense of health, because my knees are starting to feel the effects of carrying all that weight. And so that was part of the reason why I started to reduce my carbs and stuff like that. But then I blew out my knees, and that was an ordeal. I had surgery on one knee right away to repair a patella tendon. And then in February, I had a surgery on a second knee to repair the quad tendon. And so I had both.
That was February of 2020.
February 2020, yes. And so I would have both legs in braces at the same time, and learning how to navigate that with a walker, and mostly being bedridden, but trying to gain some mobility back in my life, even though it was a struggle. So in March of 2020, my wife had a work event to go to in LA for a few days. I live in Long Beach. And so my mother decided to come back from a ski trip that she took in Idaho and come by and take care of me before she went back to her house in Upland. Unbeknownst to her, my sister, and a lot of people after the ski event, COVID had came to town and got several people infected, including my sister and my mother.
And this was very early on, before, anyone really knew, before we really knew how big of an event COVID would be on the world.
Right. This was right at the very, very beginning of the pandemic. And when the pandemic came to the United States, nobody really knew what was going on. I'm assuming that only government officials probably knew the depths of it, but it was just barely hitting the news media. Like a place here has an outbreak, a person here has an outbreak. I think it was reported that Seattle had an outbreak, and then the New Yorker magazine did an in-depth contact tracing, basically saying that some of the people from Seattle who own homes in Idaho tried to escape to get away from the pandemic that was hitting Seattle, and they brought it with them. So, so then my mom came to stay with me, and she was very strong, very vibrant woman at the age of 81 at the time.
So she
And
was skiing at 81.
well, she wasn't skiing, but she was partying. So
Okay. Still, that's a
it,
vibrant 81.
exactly. So she was hanging out. They were supposed to go to the Jazzy Jeff party. They didn't make it. Just got tired, but she was hanging out with the best of them. And then, so she came and took care of me. And during that time, I saw her starting to get, sick. Like she just had the flu or something like that, and didn't think too much of it at all. And then she left and went home. And a couple of days later, I started feeling weird. And then I called. I hadn't talked to my mom in a few days. So I called my mom and was like, "What's going on?" And she just sounded delirious, right? So I had my niece and I called my other sister in because at this time my other sister, my older sister, was sick and had to go to the hospital. She was never intubated, but she had to go to the hospital.
Mhm.
And then so I called my sister from San Diego to have her come up and take care of my mom because I couldn't take care of her because I had my knees. I was incapacitated, so I couldn't do it. So then my niece went over there and said something's not right about her. Took her to the hospital. They just said she had a flu. Came back home. Still something wasn't right with her. But by that time, I started getting sick. And then this was probably when I was in the middle of my initiation of COVID, is when everything shut down. So I think I was like 3 days sick, and then they said, "All right, everything's shut down." And that's when the school stopped, and my wife stopped going to work. Um, Everything just basically shut down. Then on March 21st, I got to the point where I was so sick that I had to go to the hospital. I just couldn't take it no more. I've been allergic to cats for a number of years, and so it gives me like an asthmatic type condition. So I know when I got to the point where I was feeling like I was couldn't breathe, like all right, I had to go because I know it's getting bad now. So I went to the hospital, went to the emergency room, and by that time, my sister got a COVID test and she tested positive. So then my mom um, was her hospital was informed that she was exposed to COVID. And then when my wife called the ambulance, they told them that he was exposed to COVID. So they came to whole full uh, hazmat suits and everything like that, and they wouldn't come to the house. So with two um, surgically repaired legs that are still healing, and um, full blood COVID, I could barely breathe. I had to get myself out of my own house onto the stretcher because it wouldn't come inside.
Wow.
Yeah,
That must have been really scary.
it's one of the hardest, most concentrated things I had to do. Like I really just I cannot afford to not give in to the weakness of COVID and the how bad I was feeling. I just had to summon all my strength to make this happen and stay focused and take the
And
steps necessary to get out of my house.
yeah, and I think for people who haven't had COVID, I don't think people really get how the level of exhaustion that you feel. I had it too. It wasn't bad enough to go to the hospital, but it was like, just getting up and moving around was like a whole ordeal. I just
Yeah,
didn't get up.
right. And had I just been sick, that would be the worst experience and being sick I've ever been in my life. Right. If I never went to the hospital, never all the other stuff happened to me, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So anyway, so I successfully get myself onto the gurney, go to the hospital. I think I was in it for a couple of days, and then after that, I just went into this dream state. And I guess at that time, I got intubated, and so I didn't know it from the outside looking in. I just know I was just in this kind of dream where, and I don't want this to sound bigoted or anything like that, but it felt like I was in a Godzilla movie where all these people coming in with these hazmat gear on, and all I could see, because most of the nurses are either Asian or Filipino or something like that. So all I could see was their goggles right here, and all I could see was these slanted eyes. I'm like, why are all these Asian people talking to me, right? Because I had no idea what was going on. And then they're like, "Hey, Mr. Alexander, how you doing? What can I do for you?" I'm like, "Why are you talking to me that way?" And I'm just trying to get I'm trying to escape, right? Because it's like a Groundhog's Day type situation. I'm in this room. I see my IV bags to the right of me. Um, the beep before the alarm for the IVs being empty goes off, and I'm like, all right, I need to, like, how do I get out of it? How do I escape, right? So I fall asleep, like I must be in a bad dream. I fall asleep, I wake up, and it's the same situation. Go to sleep, wake up, it's the same situation. And I'm like, something like, how do I get, I'm just trying to escape. So every little ounce
And
of clues.
all of this was happening. I mean, don't they keep you sedated when you're intubated? Because people tend to like try to pull the tube out, and often they like strap your arms down. So was all of that dream state partly because of you being sick, and then the other part because you were very sedated?
Yeah, it was because I was heavy sedated. And I guess from what I read after the ordeal was that there's a lot of people who experience this type of delirium because of the drugs that they use. And I think one of the drugs I was on was fentanyl. Now, it wasn't the street version of fentanyl, it was the pharmaceutical hospital version. But I was not in my right state of mind. I could not figure it out whatsoever. Excuse me. Um, and so I couldn't figure it out. But at some point in time, I slowly started coming out of it. Now, unbeknownst to me, because I was completely out of it. My wife was getting up updates and stuff like that, and I gotten really, really sick. Um, COVID attacked my kidneys. One thing about COVID is it goes to your weak spots in your body and attack them, right? And it's all random for everybody. So for me, it was my kidneys. My kidneys got attacked. I never had any problem with my kidneys previously. They got attacked, and I my kidneys failed. And so, although COVID had kind of dissipated, the damage had left. I was trying to recover from the damage, and they were not. I mean, this is at the beginning of COVID too, so there's no antibodies. There was no um, ivermectin. There was no any types of remedies to. There was no COVID protocol. They were all just figuring out as they go along. Just very at the beginning of it. So my kidney doctor, excuse me, had decided to put me on dialysis for 9 days straight, and they extracted 7 gallons of fluid out of my body in those 9 days, and it was a phenomenal number to me when he told me later on. And so every day I got progressively better, and then so finally I came out of it, and I'm trying to figure out where I'm at. Uh, they gave me another COVID test, and this is the initial COVID test where they shove the stick all the way up to touch your back of your brain matter. And I was aware enough to know that that was absolutely a no-no. And I was like, "Where's my wife? Whatever you guys doing to me, all this medical experimentation stuff, it's got to stop. I don't care." And so they put me on the phone with my wife, and I was like, "Babe, you gotta get me out of here." It's like, "No, you're very sick, and you need whatever they're doing. I approve of it." And I was like, "I can't believe you just said that because they're torturing me in here with these COVID tests." So then uh, they gave me they gave before they gave the COVID test, they pulled all the piping out of my mouth, and so I was so one thing about dialysis I don't think people unless you've been through it that fluid is part of that fluid is water, right? So they take the water out of your blood because it is a thing that your kidneys have to process, pushing fluid out of your body, the water. So when they extract it out of your blood in the dialysis process, you become extremely dehydrated. So coming off of being sedated and being the most dehydrated I've ever been in my life. It felt like the Sahara Desert was in my mouth. That's how dehydrated I was. And so they had to do all this test. And so the nurse decided to give me ice chips, and those ice chips were divine. I've never, and you have to understand, being sedated on fentanyl, being completely dehydrated, and this the taste of ice chips on my mouth, it was the greatest feeling I ever had in my life. And I've had ice chips since then and cannot recreate that experience whatsoever. It was just like, oh my God, this is the best feeling. Just having that faint trickles of water trickle down your throat, and you think, I I went to heaven. This is glorious. So I recovered from there, and then I'm finally like awake. I'm alive. I'm experiencing all this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, I'm seeing new things. Like, whew. And so I'm starting to get my faculties back. And so my wife calls me again. Hey, how's everything? I'm alive. I'm alive. I'm screaming this from the top of my top of my voice. I'm alive. I can't. I'm like, oh my God, it's so great to be alive, and I'm excited. Hey, how's my sister? How's my mother? Right. And so she said, well, let me call you back and get your family on the phone. So they get my two sisters on the phone, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? She's like, I'm great. I'm great. I'm alive. I can't believe I'm awake. I'm alive. Oh my goodness. And then I said, how's mom? Well, she passed away. They couldn't save her.
I'm so
And so,
sorry. I really am sorry about that.
no, thank you. I appreciate it. But I explained to somebody, one of the reporters who interviewed me, it was like winning the lottery ticket and losing the lottery at the same day. And so my mom was my angel. So she was one of my greatest allies, as a mother should be, um, especially being a young black man in America. I tell the story of, it was just one time, me and my friends, I came back from college. I was probably like 20 years old, or 19 years old, and went in San Diego and went to a club, and some fight broke out at the club, and me and my friends got pulled over and was on a curbside lineup and had guns pointed at our heads. The police did. And, um, this is what, 35, 30 years ago. And so when I went home and told my parents what happened to us, my dad was reasonable and was saying, like, this is a bad situation, not too much you can do about it. You know, my mom was like, to hell with all that. They had my baby in a lineup, and he had guns pointing at my baby's head. We're gonna burn this whole thing down. I don't give it. I have to talk to anybody. I'll talk to the governor, the mayor, anybody. This is unacceptable. So my dad had to talk my mom off the ledge a little bit because she was about to come tear up everything. And but she's always been that way. She was an educator in San Diego for over 30 years.
Sometimes
Countless.
things need to be torn up, as we've seen in the last year. Sometimes you need to do that.
Right, exactly. And I wholeheartedly agree about that. But she educated for 30 years. Um, the impact she had on San Diego was quiet, subtle, but impactful. You know, being an administrator, how many kids you touch on a yearly basis? So many, like, I would say about 5 or 6 kids, former students of hers, reached out to us and said, there was a time where, like, my family's going to divorce and such and such and such and such, and your mom was the place of stability and comfort. Her classroom was a place of stability and comfort. And you kind of hear those, like, you hear those stories on a outside of you, but when it's personal and those people say something about your family, it really, really is just awe-inspiring. So after I reconciled with that, I was still in ICU. I was still not COVID free yet, but the sickness had dissipated. So I was in isolation. I didn't recognize my body. Like I said, I was probably like about 375, 3 at the time. And, and 6 weeks later, I'm like 330. So in that 6 weeks time, I lost like almost 50 pounds worth of weight, most of it muscle. Um,
So you were in the ICU for 6 weeks?
yes, I was in the ICU for 6 weeks. Um, and then I had to build myself up slowly. So I was in ICU for 6 weeks. I finally tested negative, and I finally got out of ICU. And the physical therapist came in, and I had to learn how to do everything again. So they have this term called orthostatic hypotension. And your body's so used to every day you wake up, you get up, you stand up, move around, so on and so forth, right? But I am laying flat on my back for 6 weeks, and my body forgot how to do that. So if I just sit up in the bed, I would almost pass out. My blood pressure would drop, and I'll almost pass out. So I had to learn how to sit in the bed. I had to learn how to stand. I had to learn how to stand for like a minute. I had to learn how to take a couple of steps. And each time I'm doing this, it gets to the point where I'm almost passing out.
And
Uh,
on top of the regular problems that people have having been laid out like that, did you still have the braces on your knees? Like the prior injury, was that still an issue?
well, what my orthopedic surgeon said was that one of the if anything positive came out of COVID was that my legs were not moving for 6 weeks, and so that's the most ideal situation for them to heal. So the tendons healed up quite nicely, and I no longer needed the braces for them to heal, but now I just need to learn how to walk again. And so that was because all the muscle fibers in my legs were gone. I didn't even recognize my legs. I had atrophy from the surgeries themselves, and then atrophy on top of being in ICU for 6 weeks. And you may add COVID on top of that. So I was in bad shape physically.
And presumably, while you were in the ICU, you were being fed intravenously. And was it mostly like glucose? I mean, so you're still essentially burning sugar.
Yes. They had they have this stuff called Carb Steady, and they started feeding it to me as I came out of when I was able to be awake and aware, uh, and start eating foods again. But it looked like the hospital version of Ensure, but I think it's the stuff they feed you intravenously. And when I looked at the back of it, because I've always been a health conscious person, right? Even though I was large, but I was always trying to do the right healthy things, working out, try to eat clean foods. But I was eating steel cut oatmeal, thinking that was going to solve the problem. Um, uh, Thinking that if I had oatmeal, sugar, and butter in a pile of oatmeal, it was actually the butter that was the good part. Um, who would have thought that? Um, so I looked at the back of this carb steady, and it was high fructose corn syrup. It was whatever chemicals you could possibly name, and however they devise it. I was like, this is horrible. Like, why am I eating this? Why do you want me to drink this? First of all, it's nasty. Second of all, it's bad for you. Like I could just see that, right? So there's that aspect of it. Then the
So
next
wait, I'm
aspect,
sorry, that's what they gave you when you woke up. But before you woke up, were
I,
you
I
fed
was
intravenously, or
yeah,
did they
so
just like not feed you?
I I was fed intravenously. So I had all the tubes down my throat. So not only was I intubated, but they was feeding tube as well. And so I'm assuming that that's the stuff that they had in the feeding tubes, this carb steady stuff. And so all this is chemical sugar process. Like, blend up a Pop Tart compared to what you just gave me in this jug. Anyway, so after that, because my kidneys had failed and hadn't recovered yet, I had to learn my kidneys had to heal. So on top of that, I was on the renal diet. And when they told me what the renal diet was, when the dietitian came and told me what the renal diet was, I was like, well, that's insane to me. Because your body processes all the minerals that are in foods, you can't do that anymore. You can't eat minerals. So green vegetables, broccoli, spinach, all these other things that we all at the time it was healthy, right? For me, it was healthy. Uh, you couldn't eat any of that. So I could drink a can of sugar. I can drink a soda on the renal diet. I can eat white pasta, white rice, um, a limited amount of meat. All I can eat breads. Anything that doesn't have nutrition in it, I can eat.
So what
Right?
about things that are fortified? I mean, when you look at like the cereal aisle, Cheerios is fortified with vitamin A, D, the blah, blah, blah. So was that a problem too? Like you really have to get something with no nutrition.
Yeah. Basically, that was it. I mean, you have to get stuff that has no nutrition in it. Now, luckily, before I left the hospital, my kidneys had recovered, but I was taking these huge horse pills like this big. They were like calcium phosphorus binders. So I swallowed one of those, and any calcium or any type of stuff calcium, phosphorus, potassium, any of those things I would consume will get binded to that, and then I'll pass it out. So that's part of it too. Like I'm taking horse pills that I'm literally gagging on, trying to swallow down my throat. Um, so I spent a total of 2 months in the hospital. So I left on March 27th. I mean, on May 27th. I came in on March 21st, left on May 27th. I was in 3 different hospitals. Um, I started my local hospital, and then I was supposed to go to rehab hospital, but they were a little concerned about the whole COVID thing, so they're a little COVID phobic. And so I went to a step down hospital to start my physical therapy. And then once they had more understanding what COVID was, then I went to Long Beach Memorial in a rehab center and spent the rest of my time there. So yeah, so when I left the hospital, I was about 45 pounds lighter, and I was physically a mess. I didn't even recognize my body anymore. I had all this damage done to COVID. And what most people don't understand is COVID it enters your lungs, it enters through your respiratory system, but it's really a blood disorder. And so it gets in and it blows up your red blood cells, and then they clot. So any places where they clot at, they cause damage. So my kidneys were the ones that caused damage primarily. Luckily, I didn't have any brain issues. It's been reported people have brain issues. The only thing I have is, like I said, the kidney issues and a lot of lower body fatigue, which I still have to this day. And other than that, I have cramping. Like if I do something strenuous, like play with my daughter, and if I grab her the wrong way, I may get like a little strain in my muscle or something like that.
Oh,
So
wow. So
yeah,
you got out of the hospital and then what happened? How did you, continue to do research about how to, get stronger, improve? Like what
right.
happened?
Well, one of the things when you're laying in the hospital bed on your back, and the only thing you have is your phone, get a lot of YouTube videos. So when I started researching the renal diet and figuring what that was, then of course the algorithm says, "Oh, you want in the diet? So then look at the carnivore diet." I'm like, "Carnivore diet? What the hell is that?" So I looked at it, I was like, "This is crazy. Carnivore diet?" I listened to it like, "Nah, this can't be true." Like, the cognitive dissonance is so real. Like this can't be true. And then I seen the Joe Rogan podcast where I was like, "Nah, it can't be real." And then so I got out of the hospital. Luckily, my kidneys recovered, so I was no longer on a renal diet, and uh, I just started eating everything I wanted to eat because other things you do when you're in the hospital in bed, you look at the foods you can't eat because you're eating terrible food. So all the food bloggers that went here and had this, birrias in Chula Vista or they were in Taiwan with Thai food or barbecue, or I tried to eat everything when I got out the hospital.
But
So
you
of
were
course,
still taking, the food blocker or the vitamin blocker
no,
pills,
no.
or you
Once
were
I
off
got
of.
out, once my kidneys had fully recovered to the point where I was just peeing normally. Um, Pause for a second. When I first started urinating again, it looked like dark tea, and I got on to pee just a little bit, and then slowly but gradually went from dark tea to Arnold Palmer to regular like lemonade type tea. So once I got all that out of my system and I was no longer on dialysis, I went from dialysis like 4 times a week, 3 times a week, twice a week, once a week. And before I left the hospital, I was done with dialysis. So my kidneys had fully recovered, which they said it was a possibility. They just didn't know because I guess the kidneys they're miraculous organs that are very fragile. And so any type of catastrophic damage to the body can throw them off kilter. So, but they recovered. So more power to my kidneys. I love my kidneys now. Anyway, so uh, so I didn't have to take any blockers or anything like that, and I was urinating normally. I was pooping normally. Um, Everything when I left the hospital, everything was working fine. Still walking with a walker. Um, One of the things, I was anemic, um, so I was almost on the verge of having a blood transfusion. So ever since I um, started doing a uh, modified carnivore diet, I was taking iron pills and folate pills, right, folic acid pills, and my anemia barely would move the needle at all, right? So I think I was like 7.1, 7.2, and below 7, they talk about doing a blood transfusion. And so I think by the time I left the hospital, I was probably like 8.5, 8.6, something like that. And then I had a buddy who started his own low carb lifestyle, and he had lost like 115 pounds, and it was called the reverse protein pyramid system, where he prioritized protein. And so I joined his thing for 30 days, and that was in the uh, October 1st. I joined, and I had dropped like 20 pounds the first month, and basically was just eat 3 meals a day, um, no more than 50 grams of carbohydrates a day, and eat meat, fatty meat. You know, fat is good for you. Fat is an essential nutrient. Protein is an essential nutrient. Carbs are not an essential nutrient. And then so then you know, I started, because I remember it in a couple months earlier, I was talking about the carnivore diet. I was like, and this guy was saying the same thing, and I trust this guy, and I know this guy's smart, and I know he's very smart, very research type of person. So I was like, all right, let me join up with him. And so then I joined up with him, and after 30, I think I did for 2 months, and had fantastic results. And then I started like, all right, this is the thing I'm going to do. So I just started doing it on my own. Where by that time, I researched enough um, carnivore YouTube videos and doing research on carbs, essential nutrients, and I understood that there's plant toxins. Who knew there were plant toxins? I don't know that the broccoli I was eating could potentially be causing me, harm and inflammation, or the green spinach I was eating, or every time I ate a corn tortilla, that corn is the same thing I was eating with those nutrient blockers. They have the same effect. Who knew, right? So then I just started it kind of changed my worldview in terms of nutrition. Because even as a youngster, when I was young, we were always trying to eat a healthy lifestyle, right? In the 80s, during the whole low fat craze, everything was all about low fat. So we're trying to get the low fat foods. I mean, I was eating licorice because it was low fat. Um, My mom was buying apple juice instead of Kool-Aid, because apple juice is better than Kool-Aid. Apple juice comes from a natural source. So we're trying to do better, even though we were so ignorant. And so now that we have new information, how do we change our paradigm? And that's the question going forward, right? So that's where I'm at right now. I'm down 50 pounds. Um, I've been doing it for
So
over.
wait, oh, sorry. So when did you start doing carnivore?
So like I said, I started with the reverse protein pyramid diet in the 1st of October 2020. And that's essentially a low carb diet, right? So then after I did that for 2 months, then I switched to like a more carnivore, ketivore type of situation where I was adding more meats. I went from 3 times a day eating to like twice a day, just because I was just so full. I had these big meals that, and I didn't have that carb, um, um, insulin, low sugar situation, because my blood sugar had stabilized. That I wasn't really hungry, so it was just more of like, I'm full, I'm empty. I'm full, I'm empty. Not necessarily I'm hungry and I need to go out and attack some food to fill my hunger. You know what I mean? And so, uh, I've been on this way for over a year now. It's like a year and 13 months approximately. Yeah, and it's been great.
So,
And go ahead.
well, I was going to say, so what is your wife, your family, what do they say? Or are they just happy to see you improving? Do you think that eating this way has contributed to you're getting better faster?
Oh, it has definitely contributed to me getting better faster. And now I'll answer your first question second. Some of the things that happened was, like I said, when I first started the diet, I was still on a walker, and then quickly I started eating all this meat and protein, and my body filled up, my muscles came back, and I was feeling stronger, and my legs got stronger, and I got off the walker and I started using a cane. Then I got the cane, and started using a walking stick, and then now I no longer use anything to support myself. Um, my skin got clearer. Uh, my inflammation reduced, and all my joints felt better. Um, what else? Um, I used to get cavities on a regular basis. No longer haven't had a cavity in over a year. Um, yeah, just so many things. I went from hypertensive to elevated blood pressure, so I'm still working on that. Uh, I'm no longer fearful of LDL, because your doctors say, "Oh, the LDL, your LDL is high. You got to take all these statin drugs." You realize that I didn't realize that statins also cause muscle fatigue. And so I was dealing with COVID muscle fatigue, trying to recover from these 2 surgeries I had, which caused a little bit of pain just because my knees aren't old knees anymore, they're new knees, and they hurt. And I just got to deal with that pain. But then also, too, I was getting muscle pain from taking statins. And so I stopped taking the statins, and I feel much better. And actually, I went to the doctor yesterday. He got on me about not taking the statins. I was like, "Look, doc, can you recommend me to a cardiologist so I can get a calcium, cardio calcium scoring test to see if I actually have any type of cardiovascular disease?" Because we're twofold. One is I really want to know, like, I want real data instead of this hypothetical um, correlation between low LDL and cardiovascular disease, because it's been proven false, but nobody else in the medical community wants to, is so caught in their own dogma that they keep staying it, right? So I want the data, and there's no data in just taking pills. That part.
I love that you pushed back on that, and please keep me up to date when you find out what your results are. I mean, I'd love to hear about that. But I think for everybody watching, it's important to instead of solely relying on a theoretical association between LDL and heart disease is to actually look. We have the ability to look at, your system and see if there is damage.
Right. And so much of the medical system is built off of insurance paying for it. And so, yeah, you can have the particle test to figure out if you have good LDL or like small particle LDL or big particle LDL. Big particle LDL is the one you're looking for. Small LDL is the ones that get in the cracks and crevices and causes damage. Well, the reason why you have small LDL is because of all the sugar in your bloodstream. So if you lower the blood sugar in your bloodstream, the chance of you having smaller LDL particles minimizes, right? You have a way of testing that. You have to ask for that test, but since nobody asked for the test and insurances aren't necessarily paying for the test, doctors aren't going to ask for it as well because they know that people are going to pay for it. Same thing with the cardio calcium scoring test. Same thing with all these tests that are possible but aren't recommended or because the insurance is not going to pay for them. And that's the only reason why. Like you can have a complete in-depth body panel workup of how you're doing if the insurance will pay for it. But since insurance is not going to pay for certain things, then nobody knows this data point. And if you don't have the data, then you don't have an informed choice. Like I said, when we were children, fat-free was all the rage. And we're eating fat-free licorice and fat-free candies and all the breads we can have because they're fat-free. Because we're given bad information, we were thinking we're doing well with bad information, right? I'm shoving steel cut oatmeal down my throat because I'm thinking it's heart healthy, right? So I'm doing the right things with the bad information. Now I'm trying to do the right things with good information. So I think that's important.
So then you started to have, a whole lot of health improvements.
Right.
Was that like convincing to your family and doctors, or do they still give you a hard time about eating this way?
Well, my doctor's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. That's basically all the numbers look good. My blood sugar's stable. All my numbers look great. When I told you before, my blood, my anemia score was like 8 point something. Then I switched to the carnivore diet. I started taking liver supplement tablets, and now I'm above 12, 13, something like that. He doesn't check for it anymore. My anemia is gone. I was on 4 or 5 months of iron and folate pills, and now I'm on liver tablets, and my anemia is gone. Come to find out that there's something called heme iron, which your body is more likely to absorb than from iron from animal products versus iron from plant products, right?
Wait, so they
So
didn't prescribe to you heme iron pills?
they prescribe the generic iron pills that
Okay,
come.
that seems crazy to me. Like, because they know, doctors know, well, the medical industry knows there is a difference between plant iron and heme iron. I mean, I've
Right.
struggled for years with anemia. And a lot of adult women who menstruate, or struggle with it all the time because of all the bleeding. But there was a period where I really struggled, and when I talked to my doctor about it, I mean, she said take iron pills, but didn't really tell me what to get. But then the nurse there kind of handed me a sheet, and the sheet was like, heme, you have to get heme iron, which is, there's not a lot. When you look on Amazon, like there's like 2 brands, and then everything else is all the plant iron. But they
Right.
also told me that there are a lot of foods that block your body's ability to absorb the iron, so you have to not eat those things with iron containing foods, which I didn't
Right.
know about. And the list was like common foods that people eat, like the tannins in tea can block
Mm-hmm.
it. So if you have any kind of tea, iced tea or whatever, or wine, that can block it. And also there's something in eggs, and I was like, oh my god, if they hadn't told me this, I would have been eating all these things.
Right. And basically what you had an agent in the system. Yeah, somebody who thought outside the box and slowly but surely slid you the information you needed to know. I can't tell you if they prescribed me heme iron or non-heme iron, but all I know is from my blood work, I was anemic. I took those for several months and was still anemic. Then once I switched to taking desiccated liver tablets, my anemia went away, along with eating the extra red meat and all stuff like that. So I don't know. I can't say, yeah, they prescribed this type of iron for me, but whatever they're doing was not solving the problem. And then when I switched up, solved the problem. Um, so one of the things that happens is you become somewhat evangelistic about your success, right? Because you're seeing excellent results. I've been trying to lose weight I'm 52, trying to lose weight for, you know, 40 years, some way, shape, or form. Um, uh, so drop 50 pounds and not being sick doing it is an amazing thing. So then I started telling my wife, like, hey, this has happened to me. My knees don't hurt as much. My body feels better. I have more energy. I have all this stuff. Oh, that's good for you, right? And she's from the school of I like bread, I like cheese, which is fine. I like vegetables. I was a former vegetarian. Uh, I eat meat, but I don't necessarily love meat. So she's on that balanced diet type situation. I had some friends that I just recently saw in Texas. We had a big discussion about my eating behaviors, and I tried to tell them like, "Hey, yeah, you're a diabetic. Stop eating the carbs." Like, nah, it's about balanced diet, and you eat a little bit of this, and you eat a little bit of this. And I've seen him, going to a soul food restaurant. I just have the omelet, and he has um, the grits, and he puts sugar on the grits, and so on and so forth. I'm like, I try not to say
I
anything, but
hated
like,
grits. I hated grits as a kid, and my grandmother used to try to entice me by putting everything on it, including syrup. And I was like,
right.
that's got to be the most disgusting approach. Good.
Hey, for some people, the debate in the black community is, do you put grits, sugar or no sugar in your grits? You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's a topic for discussion, right? You can get some heated arguments like that in spades or dominoes games. Um, uh, so, uh, I just had this discussion, and even though I go out of the room, like, man, I can never eat just all meat. I never could do that. And it's a paradigm shift. My family sees the benefits I've had, and they applaud it, and they still eat the same way they eat. And I tell them what the situation is, and they're going to eat the way they're going to eat. And then the way I see it, from my studies and understanding, is your body can tolerate the standard American diet or any version of the standard American diet for so long. Then it starts telling you, A, I can't eat this way anymore, right? And so signs start showing up, whether it be children in the acne. Um, maybe maybe you don't have as much acne if you ate a more uh, proper human diet. Um, um, they talk about how early onset of mood disorders, kids in their 20s, and all the people I saw or read or talked about were talking about how their mood has stabilized on a carnivore diet. Maybe there be less early onset of mood disorders, anxiety, depression, schizophrenia, so on and so forth. Um, the like my vision got better. Like this prescription I have right here is a lighter prescription than one I had before because my eyes slightly corrected themselves. I had no idea that was going to happen. Um, like I said, my teeth got stronger, where I'm no longer getting cavities like I once did. Um, I'm taking less medication now. I still take high blood pressure medication. That's the next step, is trying to get off of that. But really, I'm all about trying to be healthy, trying to go forward, trying to, one of my next steps is getting back in the gym, start working out again. It's been a struggle, but that's the thing I'm going forward next. Um, I got to start with lightweight and lightweight, and hopefully the repetitive motion will help with the muscle strains and muscle cramps that I get on a regular basis. Actually, let me take that back. They've actually gotten uh, lessened. I actually started adding more salt to my diet with the element tea packets. So I drink about two of those a day, and I have noticed that um, I have less muscle cramps than before. So
Wow,
I'll
that's
take it.
a really important sign. So yeah, maybe you just need to, keep working on those electrolytes.
Right. And
Have you noticed it had, since you've been taking the element, have you noticed any changes in your blood pressure? And do you check your blood pressure regularly at home?
I don't check my blood pressure regularly at home. I just had my blood pressure checked yesterday. It's in a good range. It's still a little bit higher than what I like for it to be, but it's still in a good range. But so it's still a work in progress. I'm going back to I used to fast once a day, and I kind of got away from that. So now I'm back to fasting once a day. I may up it to two times a day. I may go Tuesday and Thursdays all day fasting, just to kind of burn some more fuel that I have stored in my body.
So wait,
Plus,
I'm sorry. So that's like you do a 36-hour fast twice a week?
right now I do it once a week. I did it once a week for like a year, about 11 months, and then I got away from it, and I would do like a 24-hour fast, and then have like one meal at night, and then so I just what I notice is I'm gradually sometimes like people who you are if you've done any self work, right? So I noticed that I don't like hunger, right? It's sometimes can be uncomfortable, but then what I find myself doing is I let that creep in of eating one meal a day, and then all of a sudden it comes to two meals a day. And all of a sudden, then all right, I'm having this other uncomfortable feeling, so then maybe I eat a thing of sweets just to medicate that feeling instead of um, um, knowing that this is not the right way for me. So what I try to do is I'm still in the experimentation phase, but I got most of it figured out. But I want to do 36-hour fast once a day. I'm trying to do it twice a day, see how my body reacts to that.
You
And
mean like
then
once or twice a week, or
we
you're
yeah,
you're saying day?
once or twice a week. So not eat Tuesday, and I'm gonna start trying to not eat on Thursday, and see how my body responds to that, and see if that's manageable. And if it's manageable, then I'm gonna keep it going forward, right? I don't want. I mean, technically, yes, it's manageable because your body's gonna make it work, right? But you don't want to be so miserable doing it that it's counterproductive, right? So,
Yeah, I'm really on the fence about fasting. I think, it can be a helpful tool, but, for some people, I think it, can also lead to cheating and, falling off. And in the long run, there's no benefit to that. So,
right,
take your time with fasting.
absolutely, and that's like I said, I've had really good results with it. Um, I like I like how you have this feeling of hunger that comes on you and it lasts for a couple hours and then it dissipates. So you learn that okay, you can control your hunger impulses. That your body will learn how to control hunger impulses, right? And I appreciate the fact that instead of I get the slightest bit hungry and all of a sudden I start attacking food because I want to ease that sensation. And so I'm trying to push myself to see if I can tolerate a longer hunger cycle, right? Just like if I was, living 100,000 years ago, you had no choice in the matter. Like until you get that antelope caught and carved up and cooked, you're gonna be hungry. Um, so I'm trying to experiment that. What else is going on? And really, like on occasion, I do get a craving. I do get a sweet craving or something like that. I try to abate it for a day or two, and if it doesn't abate, I give into it, and then I reset. Right. So like a couple of days ago, I had some sushi with rice and stuff like that. Um, Rice tends not to bother me in terms of my stomach and anything like that. So that's also another benefit that I didn't realize I had irritable bowel syndrome until I went on carnivore. I just thought I was just pooping fiber out and I had chronic hemorrhoids or something like that.
I know so many of us like think that this is just how digestion is, and then you go
Right.
carnivore and it's like, oh no, none of
Yeah.
that is supposed to be happening.
Right. But we don't. Human beings don't talk about it, right? The one thing you don't talk about is pee and poop, right? So, and then not on top of that, sex. But that's a whole nother story. But pee and poop, we don't talk about. We don't talk about all of the human body functions that are miraculous and important to our everyday living and everyday comfort and well-being. Like well-being in terms of feeling good about yourself. You can't. I can't tell you how good it is to feel about having just a normal poop that doesn't hurt. You know, you take it for granted, but it's a beautiful thing, right? Uh,
Absolutely. Well, I was actually going to ask, I mean, that's sort of related, but are you still finding that you have any inflammation? You know, the IBS is usually inflammation in the gut, but, you know, there's inflammation in lots of different places. So it sounds like one area was resolved. How about your knees or your joints or anywhere else?
no, my inflammation has really, really dropped tremendously. I don't, I can't tell you if I have any more information, but all I know is it's been reduced tremendously. Um, uh, I used to wear a size 12 shoe. I went a little bit wider as I got older, and I bought a new pair of shoes, and I was back to size 12. I got up to size 13. Now I'm back to size 12. I had to buy all new clothes because how much weight I dropped. Um, I'm moving. I still have some, like I said, I still have some COVID issues with the fatigue and stuff like that. But every day I move a little bit better. I move with less thinking about my knees and how they operate. So I think slowly but surely I'm getting healthier and healthier as I go along. So that's the key, is getting healthier. But I got a long ways to go. One thing about almost succumbing to death is you have a greater appreciation of life. You want to live life to the fullest and have a high
Absolutely.
live a high quality of life, not just I'm balling because I got a chain around my neck, but really just the well-being and internal feeling good about yourself. So,
Absolutely. And I am so impressed at how far you've come, and congratulations.
mhm.
I did want to ask one question. Have you considered using like a magnesium spray or maybe taking Epsom salt baths? Because a lot of people who have cramps in the lower leg find a lot of relief by adding more magnesium. Have you tried that, or has anyone recommended that?
Mm, no, they have not recommended that to me, and I would possibly think about it. The only problem I have is uh, just the stability, mobility issues in terms of like getting down into a tub and then standing up in the tub with water in it. I don't feel like dealing with all those machinations and potential slip issues and stuff like that. Um,
Well,
I
then
still
the
struggle.
spray might be a better option for you.
Right,
Magnesium is one of it, you know, it is an electrolyte. And you know, when people start taking an electrolyte mix, it has magnesium in it, but sometimes, you know, you need more, you know,
right.
very depending on who you are. And the magnesium spray is, you know, it can be absorbed through the skin. So it's nice to have it externally. I mean, especially if you feel like you're taking a lot of pills or a lot of stuff, it's nice to have one less thing that you have to take. I recommend it to people because it's, you know, it's cheap. You can get a bottle for like $10, $12, and then you just have it. And so when you have a cramp, you can spray it and you can usually find a lot of relief. And it's it's just, you know, nice thing to have. So I don't know, give it a try.
All right, cool. I will. I learned something new. I will definitely give it a try. So yeah, but other than that, I mean, right now it's all about providing good information. I've always been a person who like to provide good information. When I heard something new and heard something revealing and informational, I try to share it with everybody. So I use my small little social media platforms for that. Uh, I found you guys through somebody I follow, Michelle Hearn, and on Instagram, and her whole dietitian dilemma um, um, philosophy. And then she posted you, and I was like, oh, interesting. And then so I found the whole Black Carnivore community, which is really appreciative because it's an important thing, especially amongst our people. I mean, we we've in this historically we made a way out of no way, right? And there's a whole lot of I love them to death, but there's a whole lot of people that are because they made a way out of no way, they try to do the vegetarian route or the Dr. Sebi route or um, the Muslim route. And this guy the other day is talking about don't eat pigs, don't eat pork, don't eat pork. Like, I understand where you're coming from, man. I appreciate you. I love pork. Bacon is delicious. God played a cool trick on a pig and making it so delicious. Um, but there is no data to support that pork is bad for you, right? Especially when you add in pork, carbs, sugar, candies, cookies, and all other stuff like that. Until you extract all this stuff out, then you understand you can have the argument is pork bad for you. Um, I don't know. I think it was on one of your podcasts we talked about. Somebody talked about how pork is bred to have um, higher
Well,
omega six.
it's not so much that it's bred to, but because of the, you know, they have a monogastric stomach, so turn they don't turn the fat, or they don't turn the food that they're eating into saturated fat. And so whatever fat form the fat comes in, that's the way it's stored in their bodies. So if they are fed that not their natural diet, but a lot of grain, then they're going to have high omega-6 in their fat. But if they are fed properly and treated properly, then they can be a good source. But, you know, it's hard to source properly raised, you know, pigs. So it, you know, it can be a challenge. Yeah. So, you know, pork is one of those tough ones. But if you love bacon, try beef bacon because wow, it is amazing.
I have to try that. That's one thing I have not tried. I'm looking for it, but I have not tried it yet.
Yeah. Well, I
Let me
know
see.
people are really going to have a lot of questions for you because you have such, you know, an involved and an amazing and inspiring story. So, how can people contact you, and you know, how can they ask you more questions?
Well, I have. I don't. I'm not like an influencer or anything like that. I just use my own pages to do what I got to do. Really, what I am is a stay-at-home father. I got two young children, and I make sure that they're uh, on the right path. They're not carnivores. My sister is, excuse me, my daughter is a semi-carnivore, but she still likes her French fries and milkshakes and stuff like that. So I'm not going to take that away from her yet. She's only 10. And my son, who's 7, is if I can get him to, if I can shove a couple of pieces of burger in between two slices of bread, and that's how he gets his meat, I'm all for it. But so on Facebook, I'm just Lawrence Alexander the Third. On Instagram, I'm Sid Mar Pops, and that's really about it. I'm part of the carnivore community that you set up, the Black Carnivore community. Um, yeah, so reach out for me if somebody hits me in the Black Carnivore Facebook group. I'll respond and talk about it. I know you talked about possibly posting my story if somebody wanted to read further into it. That's it.
Yeah, that's right. You were interviewed by New York Magazine, you said?
No, I was interviewed by a local Long Beach, California paper called the 562. It's a sports newspaper, and So they interviewed me, and then a couple other people interviewed me, and then interviewed me for my mother's situation because she was one of the people who, one of the early people who passed away from COVID. So that's about it. And then the New Yorker magazine did a basically contact tracing story on how COVID got to that Sun Valley, Idaho ski resort. So
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely post those links, and post your contact information on social media. So so anybody who has any more questions for you can reach out to you. And thank you to all of you who watched this incredible conversation. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot, and and will continue on your carnivore journey. Thanks a lot, Lawerence.
well, thank you. I appreciate you interviewing me. It was a fantastic interview, and once I found out about you, I really am inspired by the work you're doing. And thank you for including me in part of your process.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. I'll see you next week, and have a great one.
Bye bye, guys.